On this strategy session, policy strategy session, I want to talk about something that I hope we can spend time on in depth for the rest of this year through the presidential and national elections moving forward. And that is opportunity zones and the whole concept of location-based economic development. So, spent a lot of time in this field, over 20 years working in inner cities on economic community development, entrepreneurship. Just to give you a rough sketch, the way I see it, there's three generations of this in the modern era. 1968 under President Nixon, 1998, mid 90s, late 90s under President Clinton, implementing what Jack Kemp and some Republicans popularized, and 2017 opportunity zones under President Donald J. Trump. So you have black capitalism under Nixon, enterprise communities and empowerment zones under President Clinton, and you have opportunity zones under President Trump. So the fundamental question where I think we need to start is, do location-based or location-focused policies, do they work? And I'm of the mindset, I'm agnostic. I think they can and they can't, because I think social infrastructure matters more. Trust in the community is the basis of economic development, not necessarily an investment, fiscal, or monetary incentive. And so that in and of itself is a major debate. But fundamentally, I just want to give you real clear, salient points of where I'm coming from. Social infrastructure, trust, who influences thought in the community, what level of transportation, what level of innovation, what level of the commercialization of novelty. All of these things are a level of security in the neighborhood. All these things are social infrastructure. I think they're way more important than policy. The best example I can give of that is military base. I grew up Army brat in Department of Defense schools. I always tell people that ask me, what is your position on charter school, private school, public school? I think all of them can work and all of them can be epic failures, because what made Department of Defense schools successful on a military base are everyone knows that your good standing, your membership in the community in good standing is dependent upon how well you or your children do in school. So everyone's a stakeholder in the success of every single child that goes to school. That's social infrastructure. It has nothing to do with private, public, charter. You can have community solidarity under any framework. And so the same applies here with economic development, the way I see it. There's a lot of scholarship on that topic that at Hip-Hoppreneur we can chop up, debate, and disseminate. If you are a part of our mailing list or you follow us on social media, we'll get that out and we can have conversation about it. But the main problem is we really don't know if they work or not, because we can't measure success. And so I'm tracking over, personally, 200 pieces of legislation that have been introduced, enacted at the state legislative level in the United States, 200 of them. The vast majority of pieces that are introduced are passing that have some opportunity zone impact. And so the train has kind of left the station. But New Jersey, my state, to me gave a model of what needs to be done. There are some federal pieces of legislation that do this. But there's a state assembly bill that mandates a reporting in each opportunity zone to, quote, track and is required to include information related to racial demographics, employment, home ownership, affordable housing, minority-owned businesses, minority entrepreneurship, gentrification, sustainability, economic development in each federal opportunity zone in the state of New Jersey. So if that were to pass, you'd be able to see what I mean by social infrastructure, the context of the culture and how that impacts policy. It was introduced March 23rd of this year by Verlina Reynolds Jackson, Assemblywoman Verlina Reynolds Jackson, Assemblyman William W. Spearman, and Assemblyman Gordon M. Johnson. I have written them personally to follow up and get more information about Assembly number 3890 and its status. So what makes Hip-Hoppreneur's view of opportunity zones different is, we appreciate the real estate play, but you don't develop a community by developing things. You have to develop people. And so we put a laser-like focus on the community aspect of development as relates to small businesses, the ideas, talents that come from lower income individuals. Creativity, adversity, and suffering is the mother of that often. So you have to start with a human being and what goes on inside of them. And in a creative sense, you have to deal with entrepreneurship. So that's one thing that we focus on. Micro businesses, those that have less than 10 employees, and then small businesses that probably have 20 employees or less. That's our focus at Hip-Hoppreneur. Also, we look at how money circulates in the community, because if it flows in and flows out, then it doesn't develop anything. And so that's our focus with the community cash box. We have talked a lot about that as to why art, sports, and entertainment has not produced economic development left. It's because the way the money circulates in and out. So we judge everything by that. So we will work with anyone who is pro-con opportunity zone based upon our approach. The goal is to always make something that's in motion better. If you can't reform it, then you eliminate it. So my view is there's enough in some of the opportunity zone blueprints that can be worked on if the community has a high level of trust, if there's social infrastructure, and if you can demonstrate bottom up economic development and not top down. The opportunity zones were developed primarily in the interest of a powerful real estate or hotelier lobby. It is primarily about serving the interest of well-heeled investors who are able to defer capital gains and who are able to eliminate capital gains. So you have one side of the street are those heeled investors with capital gains interests that they are trying to protect or defer or exempt. And then you have straight up real estate developers. So my view is that there's been a false dichotomy between real estate development, particularly commercial real estate development, and the kind of small business bottom up entrepreneurship that we talk about. Nothing wrong with flipping properties, but most of us are familiar with the idea that a commercial real estate project will start with an anchor tenant, not a small business from the community. And the goal is to lure investment in from outside of the community based upon, a few companies that have committed to a project. You all know the names. I don't have to say who they are. And based upon them coming and betting on a neighborhood, then all of these investment dollars flow. Well, to me, if you can't bet on the people that are there, if you can't invest in their ideas, if you can't scale a human being into a micro business into a small business, then everything's out of alignment from the door. So let's talk more about that. Opportunity zones, entrepreneurship versus real estate versus commercial real estate. I think we can do both and have them in better alignment in the interest of the human capital that's in the neighborhood. Big debate over whether job creation and wealth inequality are exasperated or whether they are ameliorated by opportunity zones. So, did I say exasperated? I meant to say exacerbated. The Hip-Hoppreneur, Cedric Muhammad. Peace.